It's your guy, Jez to the I, bringing you lesson 4 for KL's music production class, remote learning edition. That's right, we're on our 4th lesson. If you haven't watched the first 3, please do that now. That is mandatory to build on what we've learned so far. You'll remember in the first lesson we did some history and culture. Then we got into the drum loop, the boom, bap, and tss. And then we made our first 4 loops out of our first drum loop by copying and pasting, doing a little bit of spicing it up, and then having a nice breakdown or dropout at the end. Last week we started adding musical elements, starting with our own melody with the bass line, and then getting into some chords based on that bass line, and then getting into some other melodic elements that were copied from the bass line but played with different notes or different tones. So you can get a lot out of one melody that you make up. And that is the process of composing music from scratch, which I'm always going to be a huge proponent of and always encourage you to do that. But being that I'm also a DJ and we have to honor the tradition of how beats were made originally from other pieces of music, this week we're going to switch our focus to utilizing the loops aspect of soundtrack. So loops are just like back in the day when the DJ was looking for just a certain part of the record that he wanted to loop up. Remember in the first lesson I looped up the James Brown Funky Drummer. So that's where we got our first drum breaks, was looping them that way. Well, as hip-hop music progressed, digital sampling was used where you could record a loop of an old record and then loop it just by pressing a button or sequencing it out on your screen. I want it to play this many times in a row. And you could chop it down, and we won't get into too much of that yet, but suffice it to say, it's gotten easier and easier throughout the years to utilize small pieces of music from other sources. So initially we used to have to dig these loops up and chop them down from the rest of the song on the record into like a nice, neat 8-beat loop or 4-beat loop or maybe even a 16-beat loop, okay? So in a lot of the new software, they come with a bunch of these loops. And the nice thing about the loops that these apps come with is they want you to use them. You don't have to ask permission. If you dig through some old records and find a dope guitar hook that you want to snip and put on a new drum that you made, the people who own the copyright to that original recording might come after you. It's honestly very unlikely unless you start doing a lot of numbers. Then they're just going to want their cut. So when hip-hop didn't have a lot of from-scratch production, producers always had to clear their samples. And this is still an issue to this day because there's just no sound like a good old sample. And a lot of modern producers still use them. But if you're going to use them in a hit record, you got to get permission from the original owners of the copyright. So that can be a headache. Honestly, I would still recommend that you keep an ear out for those type of samples and use them as much as you want because you can cross that bridge when you get there. If you find something that's so dope that you just got to use it and it's never been used before except in the original, then just do it. You know what I'm saying? And then figure out the legal stuff later. But with these apps, they have a bunch of loops. They actually hire a lot of musicians and producers to create these loops for these apps. So some of them sound like they're made from an old record and stuff, but it's just these producers and musicians who can play certain parts But the nice thing about these loops too is like they're isolated. Whereas when we used to dig up loops on the records, it would always be really hard to catch like just 4 beats of a nice bass line, 4 beats of a nice horn, 4 beats of a nice drum or guitar, whatever it is that you're looking for. It's hard to find them by themselves. So that's why in these apps, the app developers pay a bunch of musicians and producers to generate a whole bunch of loops so that you guys, or whoever's using it, can put together those loops however they want. So it's another way to make music. It's a lot quicker because they even have drums in there. So we're going to explore that. Like I feel like it's good to study music in this way and see what you really like about these loops. And if you really like one loop in particular, you could break it down and find out like what instrument they used, how they did the settings on the instrument, and then maybe you could learn how to play that instrument. You know what I'm saying? Because you like that loop so much. That's what got me into playing Fender Rhodes electric piano. Because I had so many samples that was the sound that I liked. I was like, you know what? I gotta just learn how to play that piano myself. So I encourage you to use loops. I'm always going to encourage you to compose your own music too. But the art of composing with loops is nothing to underestimate. Some of the greatest producers of all time are loop-based producers. Although back then they had to find their own loops. So let's dig into Soundtrap and see what's up with their loop game. First things first, we're going to see where we left off. And I want to review the importance of your drum programming in this context because a couple of you had some issues where your boom wasn't on the 1. So I'm going to blow up my first drum loop, and you'll notice that my boom is on the 1. But I remember, I forget who it was, but they had like a boom. And this felt like the 1. So let's do that. Let's move the bap over here and the bap over here, and let's just focus on this first loop at first and listen to the difference. Okay, turn cycle on. You can even hear with my music it's off. I wanted to solo it though to let you hear, like, without the music on it, it sounds fine. I could rap, I could snap, I could clap, I could do all of that, right? But when I tried to play it with the music, it was off because everything else is set to start on the 1. So be careful, especially with loops, because loops are designed to start on the 1 as well. So your drums are not going to line up with these loops if the boom is not on the 1. It's one of the biggest issues that comes up with new users. So once you got a nice solid 2 or 4 drum beat loop, I'm going to work with just 2 bars right now, and we're going to crack open this sample library. Now I have to move my camera here so we can see this library. You just click that musical note icon, and then boom, there's a whole bunch of categories. Since we started with a drum, everybody should have a drum by now. We're not going to dabble with their drums yet. I'm going to show you some of those later. But for now, let's just pick an instrument. Piano is usually my go-to, but today, why don't we try some sort of synthesizer, okay? Then you can click another button. You say you want more of a jazzy synthesizer. You know what I'm saying? And you can keep going. Jazzy, since the originals, that was too much. So I'm going to take originals off. And then let's just listen to one of these loops. Very etheric. And then if you want, you can start by playing your drum, and then it will try to line up the sample with your drum. I noticed I had to change my levels to match the preview level, so that might make it easier for you. Make sure you're up about 75% on your drum, and that should match the sample level. So since my drum's on the 1, this sample's looping up. It's lining up pretty nicely. Now, musically, I don't know if it's going to fit with all the music stuff that I already made. But this is also an option if anybody's been having a really hard time coming up with their own melodies. This is a good option to just get the ball rolling. You know what I'm saying? So let's just pretend we're one of those people. We haven't composed any music yet. We just kind of got stuck. Maybe we didn't have our MIDI keyboard, so clicking the melodies wasn't feeling natural. We come over here and we find a dope loop to get started. We already got a dope drum. Now you can just drag that loop over and you can line it up on a new track right underneath your drum, and boom, we're cooking with oil. You know what I'm saying? Now, it automatically chopped my loop into 2 bars since I only had 2 bars of drums, but I noticed that the loop is actually 4 bars long. So make sure you play with adjusting the end to make sure you're getting all of it. When I go further, there's nothing there, so you know it's only 4 bars long, okay? So now I'm going to adjust the end of my drum to encapsulate all 4 bars, and this should sound decent. Don't forget to unmute the sample. And that actually fits pretty good, and I can adjust the levels a little bit so it doesn't drown out the drum now that it's on the track. And I like that. That sounds good. Real quick, I wanted to cover 2 different types of loops. If you notice, some of them have these musical notes next to them, and some of them have these waveforms. The difference is, and this is cool actually, this is MIDI versus audio, okay? So with MIDI loops, they actually played like a MIDI controller to create those loops. So they're controlling sounds that are in the app. So it's not a recording, it's a MIDI trigger. So the nice thing about that is I could be like, you know what, I really like these chords, but maybe I like them with a different tone. And you notice the instrument is right there. I could switch up the pad. I could go here and be like, let's try the swell pad instead. You know what I'm saying? And now it's going to sound exactly the same musically, but it'll have a different tone. Oops, let me rewind. See how it's swelled instead of coming full blast. And actually, I kind of like that. This sounds cool. So I'm going to keep that. And then we're going to look at some audio loops to maybe mix with that MIDI loop. So usually what I do after I get something like this, which is a harmony, I'm going to go back to my fundamentals and look for a bass line and see what kind of bass lines they got. We got some 808s here. It's pretty basic. And then let's just try another one. That one's super low. Let's see what these acoustic basses are. A little too slow for me. I'm gonna keep looking. Too techy. Not feeling that at all. That one's a MIDI one. I really wanted to try an audio one. More MIDI stuff. Too techno-y. These are kind of raw. And again, these are not even MIDI. Oof. So far, I'm not really impressed with their bass lines. Some of them are alright. Oh boy. Okay, now we get some. Now I don't know if that's gonna mix with my synthesizer, but I kind of like it, so I'm gonna test it out. Now, which one was that? I messed up. Forgot where it was. I think it would have fit too. Oh, here it goes. Whoa. I don't know what happened with that, but crashed the system somehow. Let me stop. Sorry about that. So the only problem was the doom 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 worked, but then the doom 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 was out of key. So I'm gonna keep looking for a different bass line. I think I am gonna stick with maybe one of these 808 joints. They might have been simpler and easier to work with. Yeah, just some nice dirty 808s ought to work. So let's rewind this, and actually we don't need this anymore. I'm closing that so I have room to drag this down. Now I don't know what those last 3 notes are going to be, but let's just hope it mixes with what we got. And again, this one is a MIDI loop, which I'm going to show you the benefit of that right now, because I think it's missing some notes. I want 2 more right there. So with the MIDI, you can come in here, move them around, add another one. I can make that last one go down. You know what I'm saying? The way that the chords change up. Too short, no problem. Extend it. I think it shouldn't change until before. And I like the boom, boom, boom thing going that I had before. But then this one's going to be low. So these are the type of changes you couldn't make if it was an audio. So that's the benefit of MIDI. And so that's the MIDI loops in a nutshell. Feel free to, you know what I'm saying, also like chop it up. If like let's find a piano real quick. And maybe not all of the piano works. I just want a nice little melody. See how this has a lot of different stuff? That's pretty cool. That's definitely audio. So I like it. I don't know if it's going to match harmonically, but let's throw it in there and see if there's any options. This is already shorter, so maybe only one of them works, and then we could chop the other one out. Let's see. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The first one kind of fits, but the second one is way off. So it automatically looped it. This is the actual size of the loop here. It's only 1 bar long. But what we're going to do is we're going to shrink it. Or it's not letting me shrink it. What we're going to do is we're going to chop it. Use your playhead and find the part of the loop that you don't like and put the playhead right before it. And when you right click it, it'll give you an option to split region. So we split that and get it out, you know what I'm saying? Delete the second half, you know what I'm saying? So now I just got this one part that I like. Now check this out, transpose. It's in the key of F now, and it feels like slightly out of key. So I'm just gonna experiment, throw it in E flat, and maybe that will make it sound better. Nope. So that was transposed to E flat, but it wasn't really working. So let's go the other way. Let's try G, just one step up instead of down. Still not feeling that. It says it's in F minor, so maybe we need to change this to F minor. I mean, that's where we were. Let's hear it again. Yeah, it actually does feel. But when it drops, I want this to drop with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that first one and we're going to paste it over here on the fourth where the synth changes, right? But this one, we're going to change the pitch using transpose, and we want to go down one step. So we're going to go to E. See if that does it. Kind of works. I think it needs like one more half step. So let's try. Right now it should be on E. Let's try E flat. Yeah. Nice. So using loops is fun because sometimes you don't even have to use them in a loopy way. You could just find one part of the sound that you really like and use that split region feature to isolate it and throw it in where you want it. So now I got almost everything I want for this beat. I feel like the piano's like leaving me hanging just a little bit. So what I would like to do is throw just like a couple musical notes on top of it. So I'm going to play it. I want it to be tickly on the top. I want to add one more at the end. So I'm going to put my cursor there. And remember, create region is how you can create a new segment to compose in. And I know I dropped it. So there you go, a little bit of added composing on the top, and we got a decent little loop. Now that piano's a little too loud, so we're going to change the levels. But then we'll see how it all blends together. Let's zoom out so we can see everything. Don't need this anymore. it can be a lot of fun, and you can work really fast if you find a couple loops that work together, and then you can dress them up with a couple MIDI or you know what I'm saying, instrument sounds composed on top of them. And like I said, you can also use your MIDI drums that you already made. But let's just say you don't have a drum and all you have is like some dope music. Now we can go over here and find us a drum from one of their loops. Make sure you erase the first part that you had, and then click drums, and then they have a whole bunch of elements too. You don't have to find a whole drum loop. You can find just the kicks, just the snares, just the kick and the snare. Let's see how this goes. So if you were having a hard time coming up with a drum, they got you covered too. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this lesson. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you paused and did your own version. You know what I'm saying? I'm just showing you the techniques so that you can use them to make your own joints. And hopefully it comes together to give you a backdrop to maybe drop some rhymes on it or sing a song on it. That's the ultimate goal. So what we'll cover next week is, after we establish a nice loop like this, how do we extend it and bring some structural elements so that we can let the listener know this is the beginning of the song, the middle of the song, and the end of the song, and the transitions between. How do we deal with that? First we'll do the structure, then we'll focus on transitions. But now it's your turn. I just want to make sure you come to the next class with good questions about using the loops, because you tried using the loops, okay? Use the loops, make a new beat, or add on to the one that you already had. Either way, don't forget to save it, and don't forget to hit this share button and invite me. You just type in JL, and it'll autofill my email, jlivingston7 at cps.edu. All right, y'all. I'll see you on Monday, and I'll give you a prep for this, and then Tuesday we'll break it down and see what you did with it. All right? Peace.